Emperors. Alright, when it comes to emperors, I definitely did take a lot of inspiration when it comes to more darker things. One of the main themes of emperors is kind of a loss of innocence. That transitional period between your teenage years to your darker, somewhat bleak-minded adult years. Okay, the main story of emperors, as the name suggests, there are these 5 emperors who basically taken over the world as we know it. They have armies upon armies of people who have superpowers. The emperors themselves, they don't have powers. Instead, they give the powers to somebody else, becoming a power holder. And it could be any number of things. It could be turning into enamel or making flames out of your hands, etc., etc. The story kind of follows the main character, Krista Sutherland, who is just a regular girl living her normal life, albeit it's kind of taken over, and she's growing up in the territory of one of these emperors. And eventually, she comes to discover that she's an emperor herself, a very young emperor who has to kind of take over and try to stop the tyranny, so to speak. That sort of thing. One of my biggest inspirations for this was definitely the Hunger Games, specifically the original trilogy following Katniss Everdeen and her adventure, how she basically started a revolution without really meaning to, while Krista, on the other hand, she kind of started one intentionally. And if I'm going to be perfectly honest, in the back of my mind, one of my biggest inspirations was, well, Sailor Moon. The classic Sailor Moon that, admittedly, I didn't even get into until popularity for the series started up again in the 2010s. But the story basically follows the same kind of formula. You have this young chosen person, this hero who's supposed to bring about peace to the world. However, she has to recruit other people to help her do so. In the back of my mind, I think Emperors was always meant to be a more darker, more dystopian Sailor Moon, if that makes any lick of sense.
Chapter 1. My name is Krista Sutherland. Love can be a wonderful thing. It is out of love that people can do the impossible, and from there can continue to move forward. This is a story, not my own story, but a story about 5 heroes who shaped our world for the better, and from their inspirations, our world can begin to move forward. This story is about those 5 heroes who I truly love. My name is Krista Sutherland, and this story is not my own, but the one I must tell. It began only a decade ago when people with extraordinary powers began to appear in our world. Just regular people,
because that was kind of the main thing. And it does follow a similar formula to it. Having this hero of legend who's supposed to bring peace to the world, and having to go on a bit of a recruitment mission in order to do that. Okay, now to talk briefly about the 5 emperors, the ones that the book is kind of named after, not including Krista. Basically, the 5 emperors kind of represent 5 different forms of power. Like, 5 different ways that people rise to power, so to speak. There's one that did it through crime, there's one that did it through politics, one that did it through religion, one that did so through physical strength, one that did so through military might. And they all basically rule these territories using those different respects, using religious influence or political corruption or military occupation or even just respect for physical might, etc., etc. You get the idea. And Krista, of course, she's the young new blood who kind of has to figure out how to do these things. Um, but keep in mind that the main target is the emperors, because if the emperor dies, then all the power holders they have under their command, they lose their powers instantly. They go back to just being regular people again. So it's kind of like a nice little chess match when you really think about it. When it came to the emperors, the main key right here would be the chess piece king. The king is arguably the weakest and most vulnerable piece. Like, the king can attack, but at the same time, it can't do much. And of course, if the king is captured or killed, which is more likely in real life as opposed to a game of chess, then the other side loses entirely. So when it comes to the emperors, the whole thing does play out almost like a real life chess match. Basically, capture the king or the emperor, and the other side falls, and loses immediately. That was basically the biggest inspiration, that the emperor is the king on the chess piece. A simple game of defeat the king and win the match. That's kind of how it works. All right then. There's a link in the description below. I hope that you'll give it a read. Thank you very much for making it to the end of this. Have yourself a good day.